Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd. So it's my friends over at Yarnspirations.com. We have the Crochet Kitty Couch. Today is a walkthrough of this particular pattern. I am going to demonstrate a bit of stitch work today, but the reality is that most of the components of this are actually the same thing, just in different shapes. So once you understand how that's gonna work together, then it's gonna be amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the construction of this first, and then we're gonna talk about the materials and so forth. So I have a massive list. If you go into more information of this video or you go into the pinned comment, you will actually see a breakdown of all the different chapters that we have for this particular project today. So this is made up of different pieces of foam to make it work. So you have a base of the foam, then you have a back foam, and then two armrests. And then the rest of it is just crocheted right up over top of the foam. So the foam has been put together through hot glue, and you see how it's rounding off like that? That could be the material that's pulling that, but if you would like to have that exactly, then what you can do is that when you cut those pieces, if you just chamfer off a part of the edge and make it more round looking, you'll get that look as well. So there is a diagram here of the foam assembly. So as I said, the base piece is one big solid piece, as you see, and then the back here is a solid piece going all the way back, and then the armrests are here. So you're going to hot glue those together. So just cut those out. The information is available on the last page in order to make that happen. So it's a really neat idea. So the cushions will sit on top of this once you get it done. This whole foam thing will be encased in crochet. So the way that we're going to do the panel work is that once you see how it all comes together, when you lay it up over top, it's going to wrap it like a Christmas gift, and then at the very end you'll have a base panel that will be underneath. So everything from top to bottom, including the underside, will be completely crocheted. The suggested materials today is 2 crochet hooks, and you'll notice that the afghan here is made with a smaller hook, and it's using a Red Heart Mini in order to make that. There's 2 different colorways that they're using, so you make 8 of one ball, 8 of the other as far as getting that look, and then you're gonna sew those together and put a border around that, and that can lay over top, but you can also sew it to there so it's there permanently as well. So you're going to use a smaller hook for that. That's a G size 4mm, and then the larger hook is a US 7, a 4.5mm for the rest of it. So you can see that the rest of the components here are made with the bigger hook. So you just have to pay attention for the granny square for the smaller size. You just need 2 pieces of foam in order to make this work. You can get that like at a fabric store. I believe Joanne Fabrics and Crafts, when I was in the States, has this. I've actually seen this kind of foam also in local fabric shops as well. So you need one foam that's 3 inches, and it's 16 by 24 inches, and the other one's 4 inches, and that's also 16 by 24. One of the pieces is cut so that you can get these armrests out of it as well. So you'll notice that the whole base is basically that, and then the back here is a little bit smaller, so you'll be using the extra pieces there for the armrests. So let's get on with this, and let's just talk about what we're going to move on to. Let's just start strategically. I'm gonna work my way through the pattern in order, and we're gonna go from this particular step at this moment. You will notice that the instructions right here, it says chain 3 at the beginning of a row and round counts as a DC, and then chain 2 at the beginning of a row round does not count as a stitch. You'll see this happening in this particular project. So where you don't expect it, you'll see it happening, and I will point it out to you when we get there. And why they're doing that is that it allows it to fill in so you don't have any excessive gaps, especially when things need to attach together. So that's awesome. So join all rounds with the top with the slip stitch of the chain 3 that you're going around, and they're referring to the blanket. So let's move along to your blanket first, and let's talk about a little bit about that. So the blanket that's sitting over top of the sofa is made up of 16 motifs, and they look a little bit about this. So this is actually using the right size. So they're relatively small. So there's 8 of one colorway of the one ball, and then 8 of the other colorway of the other ball. You'll notice that you need 2 balls of each in order to make that work. So what you're going to do, it's only 4 rounds. So on the Crochet Crowd itself, if you follow the link in the more information of this video or the pinned comment, I'm going to put a video on how to do granny squares here. There's only 4 rounds, and this is a typical granny, and this is using the smaller hook, a 4mm size G hook, in order to make that work. So what I would recommend is that when you put it together, I would sew it with an invisible seam. I'll put a link in the more information for that too, and then you can just sew it together, and then once all of this is together, you're just gonna circle it with a nice quick little border. Let's talk about a little bit of border. Let's talk about the border next. So once you have everything done together, you're gonna see that there's gonna be an assembly like this. So these are 8 of each of the colors. So you can do it like that. You can do anything that you would like to do really. So you're just going to sew them into strips of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just put it together. And I would do the invisible join for that if it were me and I were you. So once you have this all assembled with round 1, work 1 round, single crochet evenly all the way around, and put 3 single crochets in each of the corners and then join, and then that's it. So you can decide the color that you would like to make it all strategic really. So it's actually not a hard thing to do. So they're telling you to start with this as our beginning step, so you get the fun stuff over with, and then we're going to move on then to the actual sofa itself. So the sofa itself is actually the same stitch combination for almost all of it except for the dust cover that you see. So what you're looking at here is a combination of single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, and the way that it's working up, it creates this textured look that you see here. So every component of this particular sofa except for the dust cover is done using that same stitch technique. The only difference is that when you look at all of these particular shapes, some of them are square, some of them have an indentation in, some have an increase. So what I want to do is that I want to show you what those pieces are, and then once you understand that, I'm gonna demonstrate for you what the actual stitch combo is so that you can follow that, and then when you're looking at this pattern you can just start off with the number of chains and then actually understand it even more. So let's look at some of the components. So let's talk about the shapes. There are several shapes that we need to do in order to make this cushion, but the stitch counts are just changed on the starting of the chain, but the reality is that it's the width that are really different from each other. So in some of the cushions and some of the stuff that we have to do is that some of it is just completely a square or a rectangle. So we have that, like the end caps of the actual armrests, the things going over the armrests are like a rectangle. In this case the cushion, we start off large and then we're going to then eliminate some stitches and then keep on going. So there's cushion A and cushion B so that you get the right formation. So not all the shapes are like that. Some of them are bigger at first, then they decrease, and then they go bigger again, and then how it's all being attached at the end is the secret to this. So let me show you that. So here's what it looks like. So this here, the seat to this section here is just one panel that you have. So you start off and then you get there. Then what you have is the back panel, and this is done separately, and then it's sewn to the top of here. Then you have your armrests, and they're done individually and they're sewn here. So what I decided to do is make a little mini model. If you want to do a mini model too, this line here has just been bent just so that you can see it, but if you want to cut it, go to the same width like this, and then come here and then cut it right there. Okay, so just ignore the angle, and if you cut that out, what you can do is that you can make yourself a little mini model in order to follow, and then you can bend it and you can see how all of this shape ends up being the cushion, sorry, the seat, the back, the top, the back, and then you have the armrest like this. So then the other components that we're going to do then is that you'll put on the armrest at the front here, and then you have the base that will go all the way around, and then the dust cover, etc., and then the cushions just sit on top and the blanket just sits on the back. So this is what the piece will look like. So this is just a fun little shape I did. So you're going to notice that it's actually really dense. It's like meat dense. And this is the stitch combination that is going to be used throughout almost the entire thing except for the dust cover. So it's very dense, it's very thick, and that's just the way it's going to be today. So no matter what component that you're doing, this is kind of the shape, the stitching that you're going to do, and the only difference is that once you get to certain parts you either have to increase stitches or you have to decrease if you're doing fun shapes, which I will talk about. So let me show you how to do the stitch combination first. So I'm going to just chain a total of 12. All of the chains for these components that make up that stitch combination are always an even number. So when you're looking at each section you'll notice that it's an even number as you start off. So we're going to chain, I'm just going to chain 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now what you have to do is that you have to go across the first row. So you're going to go second chain from the hook and just get the back hump of the chain and single crochet. The next chain will be double crochet, and that's all this thing is. Go going all the way across. So the next one is single crochet, the next one is double crochet, and this would be how you would complete row number 1 going across. So no matter what size that you had, this is the stitch combination to do it. I'll see you at the end of the row. So the very last stitch, if you're keeping count of that, will be 1 single crochet. So as we turn our work, we're gonna do rows number 2 and 3, which will be the repeat then for the entire panel. And if the panel has a fun little shape to it, we have to compensate for that, which I will show you how to do that as well. So let's move on to row number 2. So rows 2 and 3 are the repeat then for the entire panel that you would want to do. Okay, so that's just the way it is. If it has an increase or decrease, it's also taking that into account, and you will be adjusting when you do that as well. So row number 2 is just chain 2. That doesn't count as anything. That's just a filler to build it in so that you don't end up with a gapping space on the side. Starting in the same stitch that that's coming out of, I need you to double crochet. So how I knew that is that the last stitch was a single crochet. This has to be a double. The next stitch is a double crochet in this row. It has to be a single here. So it's completely opposite to what is below. So the next one is a single, so this one has to be a double. And I know what you're thinking, this is gonna be hard to remember. It's not. So what I like to do in my head is that I go single and then double, and I can almost guarantee to you once you get moving on this pattern, you will automatically do it without having to think twice about it. I found that with myself, so I'm not gonna say everybody's the same as me, but I found with myself I can just quickly move along. Now it's when you do a project afterward, you continue to do that kind of stitch combination automatically without thinking about it. So at the end of row number 2, you're just going to double crochet because the first one was a single crochet that was below. So turn your work and let's do row number 3. So in row number 3, the last stitch that you finished was a double crochet. So you're gonna chain up 1 and put 1 single crochet in the first one because that's what opposite to what's below it. So the next one is a single here, so it must be a double. So if you know to look for that, it's easier. So then you just blaze along, so single and then double and then single and double, and it's providing a nice dense fabric without the lines of what crochet can do. And that eventually at the very end the last stitch will be a single crochet. Remember that chain 2 does not count as anything. It was just a builder. So when you turn around, you're gonna go back to row number 2 again, and row number 2 is chain 2, and it was 1 double crochet in the first one because we had finished with the single there. So that's all this stitch combination is then for all the different shapes. So let's talk about if you have to increase or change the shape, increase or decrease. So we'll refer to the pillows or the cushions for that one. So in the cushions, as we do part A like this, and what we're going to do is that you chain 46 and then you just do this what I just showed you. So start off and then you're doing rows 2 and 3 until it measures approximately 3 inches. So it'll take you to the 3-inch mark. So it says next row slip stitch into the first 12 stitches. So that means that we're going to be ending up here, and so we're going to slip stitch to the first 12 like this, and then you start that repeat pattern going again. So you slip stitch the first 12, chain 2 does not count as a stitch, but it's gonna be a double crochet, and that should be sitting on top of a single crochet when you get there. So you're gonna start your combination of 1 single, 1 double, and you'll keep on doing that. So the next row is just exactly what you were doing with rows 2 and 3, and you will continue to do that until the project measures approximately 13 inches. Okay, so then you will fasten off. You will need to do 2 pieces of that. In this cushion here, it's completely opposite. It's the mirror. So you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna work the asterisk to the asterisk as given in cushion part A. So the asterisk to the asterisk. Do you see that? And then once you get that 3 inches done that you see here, it says chain 2, 1 double crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and you keep doing it, and you leave the last 12 stitches empty, and then that's where you're gonna turn. So what you're doing is that you're on this side coming across, so you're leaving the last 12 empty, and then you're gonna start working all the way up, and you can see that you have to do 13 inches. So you'll do 2 pieces of that. So let me show you how to do an increase and a decrease. So we'll do here we're going to do a slip stitch in the first, so we're gonna do an increase or a decrease here in order to make that happen, and then I'll show you on the other side as well. So if you have to do a decrease and it says that you're going to slip stitch, then all you're just going to do is starting in the first, you'll just slip stitch. So it says slip stitch the first 12, so I'm just gonna do 6 just for the sake of it. So I'm gonna slip stitch the first 6, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So right where I'm sitting on top of a single crochet, so I know that I have to start the next one by chaining 2 and then applying a double crochet in there, and then the next one has to be a single. So even if your stitch counts are not exactly to what's coming out in the pattern, you can just simply do that and just continue to match it so that you can customize. So all I'm going to do then is just work my way up and make this a total of 13 inches tall using this new width of this pattern. And so then you follow rows number 2 and 3 kind of like what you already know. So instead of going all the way back, I'm going to end here and then I'm gonna make that shape. So what if it was part B and it was the other way around? Let me show you that. So in part B, what they're telling you to do is start the project as normal. So I want to just chain 1 and do 1 single and then double. So it's telling you to go to a certain amount and it's telling you to leave the last few stitches empty. So once you have the recommendation that it says in the pattern, you're just going to physically stop and make that happen. Okay, and so you can just do that. And so you can stop at any point and just turn your work and then chain the number you want. So there's a double there, so this is gonna be a single, and etc. So then you'll continue with what you already know with just that stitch work going. So it's kind of easier to do it like that than it is to do that slip stitching, but you have to have the opposites. Now if you decide that you're going to make 4 pieces of number A and say I'm not gonna do the second one like this, the cushion will appear upside down if you do that, but it may not bother you. Probably won't bother your cat either, but that's something that you can consider. So that's the way to decrease. So what if you had to increase? That's kind of next. So in some panels we just talked about how we can decrease. So in this particular panel we not only have to decrease here, but we're going to then decrease on this side. So when we go, one of the sides is gonna be a slip stitch to a certain amount. You're gonna do a certain amount of stitches and then you're gonna leave the last empty. So then it ends up being in line. But what's gonna happen here when you need to increase, this is not a separate panel in this particular case, so you're going to have to increase that at the end of this in order to make it happen. So let me just show you how that's gonna work in order to create that. If you need to increase and it says you need to increase your stitches, it will tell you to chain a certain amount. So it has to be an odd number amount in order to keep the stitch work aligned properly. So in this case the increase rows for that section I just showed you said that it was gonna chain 13. So you're just gonna chain that 13. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll go all the way to 13. It has to be an odd number. Then what's going to happen is that you're going to come across and it says 1 single crochet in the second, and then you're gonna be back to your combinations. What you have to watch out for the most is that it did say that you were going to do this on the wrong side of the project. So you gotta make sure that you are going to keep that stitch work so it's going to align. So when you come back into this project you want the stitch work to look like it's seamless when it comes into the first one. Okay, so do you see that? So there's gonna be a single and then a double. Okay, so then you're gonna do all that way across. Now you can't increase both at the same time, so you're just gonna go all the way to the end and then stop, and then it says in the next row you are going to chain 14. So the other side is going to chain that on the second pass going across. So then it will take row 1 and row 2 in order to get that width, and then you'll have your increase on both sides. So as you get there, I'm almost out of yarn here, but if you get there you're going to just stop at the end. Okay, let's just say I'm stopping at the end, and when you turn it says to chain 14, whatever amount that is, and then you're just gonna continue to go across. So then by the time you do this second side, you'll have the piece growing out. And yes, it's uneven, but that's just the way it is, and it does work. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, and therefore you can get that expanded out like that. So let's move along in this project and let's discuss further. So let's talk about each component as we do it now, and we're just gonna check it off our list. You're gonna start off and you're gonna do the cushions here, and you're gonna do part A. You need to make 2 of those, and those will sit on top of each other. Now the cushion part B, you're gonna make obviously 2 of those. It's the same deal. The base of the couch is the section below the seating area. So the cushions will sit on top of here, but the base of the couch will go all the way around this couch. Now it's a total of 80 inches. If you took the measurements of what you see here, that's 84. So it's gonna be slightly stretched. So when you're finished that, what you can do is that put that right around the base of that foam piece there, and therefore you'll have that look that you need to do. So what I would pin it in a position and then sew it once you're ready in order to make that happen. So the couch seat is this here, and the top. This is a one-piece unit. This is just a fold that they're showing, and you have all the dimensions that you want to do. So you're gonna start off big, go for about 3 inches, and then you're going to do a decrease as it says in order to make that happen. And then you're going to continue along, and then you'll get the increase like I showed you before. So you just have to pay attention and just follow the instructions and just follow the measurements as you go. So you're technically doing this section here and this here as a one-piece unit, and it will be sewn to another piece in the future. So let's move along to the back of the couch. So we're gonna do the back of the couch first, and then you're going to start off, it'll be approximately 24 inches, and then it will have an increase on both sides that you have, and then you'll go all the way up. It's 27 inches wide, and what you're doing, the back of the couch is the top here, but also the back that comes down. But the 27 inches that you're seeing is the fold of that same panel coming around and coming to the front here where it's sewn, and that'll happen on both sides of course, and that's the back of the couch. So that's something that you can sew in later once you're ready to do that assembly. Let's move along to the next part. Okay, the armrests are this piece here. It's a rectangle piece, so you need to make 2 of those. It's a chaining of 38 to begin. It's the same stitch combination, and so on this here it's then would be then sewn here, and it will come up and over, and it will be sewn right in here and here. So that's the notch of the back of the couch, and then it will come down, and the base of the couch will then catch on to that as you're doing that. So you need to make 2 armrests just like you see. The next part is the armrest ends. So they're just a square. They're 3 inches in square, and so they'll be sewn into this section. So when you go to sew it, you'll sew it in all of those 3 sides plus the base of this, and then that will make it a solid piece unit, and you'll do 2 because there's 2. Let's move along now to the dust ruffle. The dust ruffle is attached at the end of this particular piece right here, right at the base, and this here is just a really nice easy chain, and then the next one has a lot extra to create the ruffle, and then the final row that you do is going to be nice and easy going in. So let me demonstrate how to do that stitch. To do the dust ruffle, it says to chain with the larger hook, which is the bigger size, is 212 stitches. So I'm not gonna demonstrate that many, so I'm just gonna do 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now what I'm going to do is the first row, so go 3rd chain from the hook, so 1, 2, and 3, get the back hump, and half double crochet yourself all the way down your entire chain. It'll take you a bit of time to get there, and so I'll meet you at the end of your chain in just a moment. When you get to the end of your chain, you're going to turn. Now the next row is going to be 840 stitches. It's a lot. So we're going to just chain up 2, doesn't count as anything as we talked about, and now in each of these stitches all the way across your chain there's gonna be 4 double crochets in each. 4 double crochet. If you want the ruffle, this is what it's gonna be today. So if you want to decrease the ruffle, just don't make as many, and if you want it nice and flat you can do that too. So you can decide what you want to do with that. So the chain 2 does not count as anything, and so it'll be 4 double crochets in each of this, and you're gonna notice immediately that there's way too many stitches going there, so that you'll have the ruffling taking effect immediately as soon as you just get beyond a few stitches. So that's what you're looking for. And then eventually you're gonna get all the way to the end of the row. You're just gonna turn your work, and you're chaining up 1, and you're going to double crochet in each of the stitches all the way across back. and that will help stabilize the ruffle, and that's something that you can decide to do. So once you have that done, you're gonna fasten off and you will sew this side here then to be the dust ruffle that will be hanging down. So it's not hard to do. So let's continue to talk more. So the next section is then the bottom. So the whole thing, it's gonna have that foam piece that's gonna be there. So the base of it's going in, then the dust ruffle, then the very base of it is going to just be this, and it is a 16" that you can see, 16" and by 24, and this is sewn to the entire base. So all the side pieces that are coming down above get sewn to that, and basically the entire foam thing then gets encased with the hook itself, or like with the project itself. So you have all the assembly instructions for how things are going to sew together. Let's talk about that. So back to the diagram we go. So this here, if you sew everything together so you have it as a one-piece unit, when you go to lay it on top of the couch, it'll naturally have the bend that you want to do. So you're gonna want to form that foam piece right now so that everything can just sit on top. So you're gonna put the two pieces together, and you're going to put this together, and you're gonna lie it up. So this here is the very top of the couch, so it's gonna fold up over top of that thickness and then come around. These sides here are going to come around, and so do you see how they're the same color? So where things are the same color is the attaching, so that you can decide to make that happen. These, as I told you, the armrests will come up over and then back down right up over top of the armrests that are sitting there, and then eventually come around. So put that on top of there. Then sew your base to the whole section that is coming down. So make sure everything's nice and sewn. Then you can do your ruffle. And the ruffle is just being added to it, and then you want to sew your base there so that everything can be encased like that. So the dust ruffle is sewn in right here. So what you want to do is that you want to put that case in there. So you want to put the base so it's coming over the top. So the ruffle is just sewn just as you see it in the photograph here, so that it provides that little bit of lift. So you're gonna come up a little bit off the surface, the bottom surface, so that it's hanging down a little bit. So it's really more aesthetic than anything. So the base is coming around, and it's probably most likely attached to the base underneath, and then this is just added on afterward just as an extra touch. So at this time of filming, this backrest here, this is not the foam piece. This is actually the back of the section coming up here. This is the back unit. They're going to be removing that out. So make sure that when you cut your panel, you don't want to cut it so that it has this notch. So if you've accidentally done that, just make sure that you just glue those back into position. So this here is a total of 24 inches by 8 inches tall. And so that piece of unit that you have, if you recall, is that the foam is much bigger. That's where your armrests are gonna come out of that same spot. So this base piece here is going to be what you're buying from the fabric shop or the craft shop, and then this here is another unit of that. There is a difference of thickness that you'll notice. Okay, and so then the back unit here is using the same that you have for those armrests as well. So it's a kind of a neat idea. It's not a hard thing to do as far as like the stitch combinations. It will take you a bit of time, but I just think it's a kind of a fun project, and if you just take it piece by piece, it may not be such a big deal. So that's it for today. We hope that you've enjoyed this walkthrough. I'm really not sure, but I hopefully that this is of help for you, but I honestly think that you just need to read the instructions and just go through piece by piece, and don't look at it as a pattern as a whole, but look at it as just individual pieces, and then check it off your list as you go. Until next time, it's Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd and some of my friends over at Yarnspirations.com. Have a good one. Bye bye.